Alright. Let the record show that I might have been a little bit too harsh in my previous assessment of Dilo. I was a long-term Dilo main on Legacy from 2015 until I swapped to Evrima, and have very fond memories of those days. As such, Dilo's addition to Evrima was something I highly anticipated. And so, when it didn't add up to the exact same experience I was used to, I was pretty disappointed. However, I decided that it was finally time for me to let go of the ideal that I expected, and allow Evrima's version of Dilo to speak its piece without my precious legacy monster hanging over it so heavily. And I will be the first to admit, I was wrong. Not on every point. There's things I'd still prefer to see changed, but when it comes to the very basic question of, is this animal viable and fun to play? I may have actually changed my mind. As is common when starting life as a Dilo, scavenging made up a good chunk of my diet. Hunting at this size is not really a viable option, as fresh spawn Dilos cannot use their venom, which is honestly their best tool for hunting just about anything. Their bad agility and tiny bite hitbox makes hunting even other juveniles a bit too risky. AI though, I could hunt those. Of course, just because I could hunt a couple of goats doesn't mean the infected won't still try to eat me. Having avoided the zombified galley, I eventually moved on and continued my growth elsewhere. The path between the bridge and south is generally good hunting. It is traveled often, and it can be watched from a distance without revealing oneself. I wasn't actively hunting the area. I'd fallen and injured myself a bit earlier, so I was healing from that while my stomach was still mostly full. It was night and raining, so when I spotted a lone Cerrado trotting his way towards south, my interest was piqued. I still had some growing to do. I was only 72% after all. But how often do you honestly find a solo Cerrado? Especially under such perfect hunting conditions. I went for a blitz attack. Envenomating him quickly would be my safest option and give me the best chance overall. He seemed confused at first, and then unconcerned as he kept walking. Apparently I didn't come across as very threatening. But then again, he was still watching me as I followed along behind him, sending hallucinations his way. It took a minute for them to catch up to him. Now maybe he'd take the threat seriously. He rushed me, making me vomit, but didn't follow up with more attacks. Now I was confused. Maybe he was supposed to be meeting up with another Cerrado, and he thought they'd protect him. I couldn't let that happen. I did my best to keep him from continuing his trot onward. Any distraction would buy me time to wear him down further. As long as I could keep the venom on him, he was as good as dinner. Ultimately, he began to run. perhaps finally realizing how dire his situation was becoming. That's fine. I'm faster than a Cerrado. And then he finally made a true attempt to finish me off. Good. It's more fun when they try to fight back. Unable to catch me though, he turned back toward the path. He was getting too far into south. I'd seen multiple Cerrados mix packing with raptors by the waterfall earlier. I couldn't let him get far enough in that they'd come to his aid or steal my kill. I got him back on my tail. That's right, away from help we go! And that was that. I had plenty of dinner to refill my stomach. Oh, also, new diet system perk. Vomiting no longer drains your diets. Just your food and water. So at least now when you get jumped by the silly things, you don't lose all of your nutrition anymore. After healing up and grabbing a drink, I settled in the bushes nearby. No sense wasting food after all. Our stomachs are bigger now, and eating an entire Cerrado over the course of 20 minutes isn't really that unheard of as a lone dilo anymore. Oh great. Anything but carnos. Couple things to note. Number 1, Dilo's night vision is great in the darkest of nights. But on a cloudy day or during a daylight hour rainstorm, it is absolutely blindingly bright. But without it on, it's then almost too dark to see properly. Number 2, in a Carno fight, Dilo's best bet is to envenomate the Carno and use the fog to escape. And so that was my plan. Sort of. Because you see, he was only a sub, and alone. I thought, if it was in purple, why not kill it? My mistake, though. He was actually not alone. There were 2 of them. So I decided to dip. No sense in dying now. All my time growing would go to waste. I wanted to be a pest, though. And as long as I possibly could, I kept sending hallucinations, until either he died or the venom wore off. I wasn't sure which. After healing my bleed, I crept around the mountainside and headed down to the river where I could rest for a while. It was still early in the day, but I was getting hungry. I had been counting on my Cerrado carcass to get me through, and into the next night when hunting would be better for me. But that was no longer an option. I was sure the Carnos had finished it off by now. I started up the hill, only to run into 2 Carnos. Crap. I didn't know if it was the same 2, but I wasn't going to stick around to find out. I didn't want to be in the open, nor did I want to have them chasing me through areas they felt safe charging. And so I fled along the cliffs. third Carno? I kept running. I knew this area well enough. I hoped that they didn't. When I finally felt like I'd lost them, I stopped at a bush to regain stamina and take a sniff around. I had run back almost to where my Cerrado carcass had been, directly to where I'd fought the Carnos before. Aha! Now I can't be 100% sure as I didn't actually witness his death, but this looks a heck of a lot like the one I envenomated earlier. The Carno body filled me up and gave me the time I required to be able to wait until night fell again. I needed water, but then my plan was to head toward Delta and search for Tenantos. I didn't get that far. A pair of decent-sized juvenile dibbles had just gotten a drink of their own. I wasn't hungry yet, but if I didn't want to be forced to hunt during the day out of desperation again, this was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I grabbed their footprints and began to track them. Finding a nice open area to attack would be key. I didn't want to fight on the edge of a cliff after all. They were making their way back into J sector, and with the rain and darkness masking my movements, I attacked. Here's the deal when fighting multiple targets as a lone dilo. If everyone is envenomated, they're all worried about themselves. Dondi once talked about dilo venom being intended to isolate you, force you into fighting for your life without your friends to help. That's all well and good if your friends don't use their brains to protect you from the actual dilo. Eventually, especially as a larger dino, the venom will wear off if the dilo can't bite you itself again. But if your friends are also dealing with hallucinations, it quickly becomes every player for themselves. Now that they were both envenomated, I held all the cards. Openings to reapply venom were frequent. They couldn't see each other well in the dark and the fog, and getting too close to each other meant accidental friendly fire if they tried to fight the clones that were attacking them both separately. Now, I do have an issue with the clones themselves right now. Yes, they do actually spawn most of the time, which is great. This is probably the best shape Dilo has been in when it comes to using his ability. However, they also seem to be impossible to hit without taking damage as the target right now, which is a problem. It makes being envenomated basically a death sentence. That's one thing that desperately needs to be fixed again, because it was for a while. You could hold off the clones by hitting them first, allowing you to survive envenomation if you were quick to attack them before they bit you. Anyway, the dibbles went down and I had food to last me through the next day cycle. Time passed. Hunting had been slim due to low player count, and I had been surviving on AI for a while. Ultimately, I decided it was time to move toward Delta as I'd previously planned. With thoughts of delicious Tenantos dancing in my head, I found myself under attack. Oh dear. This was not the best place to deal with a Carno. There was almost no cover for me to escape into. Well, that was much easier than I anticipated. Alrighty then. I sat, watching the Carno wander off the path to do the same. And then I spotted a Tenanto running down the trail. This could be good for me. If the Carno attacked and died, I'd have a meal. And if the Carno attacked and somehow survived, hopefully he'd be hurt enough that I could steal the food. A large bush blocked my view. I couldn't see what was going down between the two of them. Scent was my only indicator of the outcome. The Tenno had died. Less than ideal for me, especially with how fast the Carno had killed it. It was very unlikely that he'd been injured much by the fight. The Isle hitboxes sometimes. Wow. Anyway, at least he was envenomated now, even if I'd taken a silly amount of damage and missed a comical amount of bites in the process. I expected him to come after me, but when I realized he wasn't giving chase, I couldn't help but smile. He must have been in a worse way than I realized. He was terrified. I enjoyed snacking on the meal he had freshly killed while sending clones at him from afar. The Tenno was nice, but honestly I could really use the S diet a Carno corpse would provide. I reapplied the venom, just in case. Couldn't have my meal take off on me now, could I? Oh, but he tried all the same. And didn't get far for his efforts. Now I had all the food I could ask for, and with salt nearby, I could die at max by overeating and vomiting. Perfect. As I worked on doing so, another dilo arrived. First one I'd seen all growth. He was chill though, so we teamed up. We made our way toward West Rail. All we found was a dibble though. After a bit of a sloppy fight, we healed for a while and filled our bellies before moving onward toward south. Night fell and another storm rolled in. Steps spotted a Serrato lurking in some nearby bushes. Oh yes, it was time. I took several tail hits before finally really messing up and getting stuck on the one I was targeting. Well, now we absolutely had to kill them or my food situation was going to be a nightmare. I envenomated the green one finally. Sweet. Now we're cooking. Now we just had to deal with the other one. Steps took point. My bleed was not great after taking so many bites, and I needed to wait it out. As soon as my bleed began to heal, I rejoined the fight. Steps had gotten the other envenomated. In order to help, though, I needed to bite it too. Which didn't exactly go the way I expected, but hey, it didn't bite me, so there's that. It didn't take much before the second Cerrado also died. I don't think there's anything more satisfying than dropping Cerrados right now. Pretty sure just about everyone is sick of them dominating the island, and it gives me great pleasure to remind them that they're not invincible. Unfortunately, the fun couldn't last. The next time I logged in, I found myself instantly infected. How? Why? I have no idea, but there is no cure. And I mean, I did want to check out the whole zombie thing anyway, so I couldn't really complain. What I did know, though, was that I would need lots of food in order to survive once I turned. So I started to make my way toward West Rail, through which I planned to pass into South. As I traveled, my dilo vomited violently, losing health, slowly dying. And then some hope. My bars returned to their normal colors. Had I been cured? Nope. She hacked up the contents of her stomach again, and I knew that this dilo was officially doomed. Out on the beach, I could see a raptor sitting beside a carcass of some kind. Well, if I was going to turn anyway, might as well try to kill the raptor so I wouldn't immediately starve when I do. But oh my goodness. Why did no one ever tell me just how difficult it is to actually hit raptors as a dilo? I was going to die long before he was at this rate. But it didn't really matter. Death meant rebirth, and rebirth meant spreading my infection to the world. And then he vomited. He was infected now, too. I turned. And then so did he. Well, he wouldn't be my first meal, as zombies cannot hurt each other once they've turned. We were part of the horde now. After sharing the dibble carcass, the raptor returned to West Rail, and I made the mistake of trying to swim across the ocean to head across the beach towards south. So apparently zombies don't have an oxygen meter. They don't like water. Not one bit. And unlike bleeding out, if you drown, getting back on land won't fix the black screen. And so my zombie life ended as suddenly as it had begun. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and comment your thoughts below. If you're new around here, why not subscribe for more content just like this? Check out my merch. There's a link in the description if you want to support my channel that way. Thanks, and I'll see you again soon.